Pedro, congratulations. It is such a beautiful film. It's personal, political, it interweaves history, memory, motherhood, creativity, desire into a very rich and moving narrative. Tell me a little bit about the genesis of the film. Where did the film come from? Because I know with your work you often draw on many different sources when you're pulling together a screenplay.
Well, at the beginning, really, the movie, I started writing the first sequence of the script a summer after being operated of my back, and I was having a post-operation, very painful, and it was through pain that I started to write. I usually don't do that because, you know, I don't use writing and making a movie as a kind of therapy. But in any way, you know, I remember that summer, the peaceful moment for me, it was when I was under the water, where the in gravity made that there were no tension, no physical tension at all, and that was a very quiet moment for me. And after repeating this almost every day, then I thought perhaps this is a good image to start, and then I started writing about this, and just in a natural way. I mean, the water of the swimming pool drive me to another kind of stream, corrientes stream.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Stream of the river. And it was the river of my childhood. And it is, that memory belongs to my life. Perhaps it is one of the more bright and luminous and happy memories of that period. That even the work for women washing clothes on a, we call la tabla de lavar. I don't know, because what this is, I mean, I'm talking about the 50s.
A board, the washing board.
It was very hard, but it was full of life. They used to sing, and it was really something, a kind of explosion of life. And since that moment, because I didn't want to talk about pain really in the movie, or not only about that. And also I didn't want to complain, just being respectful with the many, many, many people that are in the world, that they having real pain bigger than everything that I can imagine. So, and also I didn't want to make a somber and pessimist movie. So since the moment that through the water, I reached the memory of my childhood, I decided to combine the present that, obviously Antonio Banderas' character is a reflection of the moment that I was living, and but also combine it with part of my memories of my childhood that I didn't use before. But not all of them, because, for example, the sequence of during when he's in the school and the priest is proving their voices to choose the soloist of the choral, this could be a sequence of bad education, and also even I mean the first sequence in the river also could belong to Volver, because they are the two movies that I talk about my childhood. So that was the origin, but not only when I start writing. I mean, I'm not so brilliant to come to a moment when I say, well, this guy is going to play a monologue, and then I write a monologue straight away, and everything is wonderful. Mm-hmm. No, when I was writing, taking the advantage of having a character that have my same profession, I mean, it's a director and a writer. So then I had, at the moment, I had already written 3 set pieces, because I used to do that. I mean, just even sometimes for fun, I write a short story that I keep it in my computer. And there were three parts that they were included into this script, and it fit then very well to the main character. that was the first desire. Also, the monologue, it was different because the protagonist was a female. It was a little different, but the main thing, it was there. And also a meeting with an actor that I had a very bad relation in fiction. And then I took them as part of the script, and the result is what you saw tonight.
It's a very good result, I think.
Thank you.
There's a lot of you, you've talked about a lot of you being in the film. So the apartment where Antonio Banderas' character lives is constructed in a Madrid studio, but it's very much based on your apartment. A lot of the furniture's yours, your own artworks feature. And you've also used lines from your own family. Tell us about the process of bringing all those things together. So there's clearly a lot of you in the film, but there's also a lot of fiction.
Yeah, there is always fiction. Even if you try to make a memoir, or since the moment that you are writing, there is a distance between the stuff you are telling and the result. And also, even when you use your memory, sometimes your memory is changing with the time. So, of course, there is a moment that my reflection in the script was mixed with fiction, and also there is a moment when fiction is the one that rules the game, and it doesn't matter if you are telling about real things. At least what I try to find is to be believable, verosimil,
plausible,
as a film. Not then at the end you don't look at reality, but look at be believable as a movie. Entonces, en la película, quiero decir, no solo el personaje, sino muchos de los elementos que aparecen me son familiares, y la idea era que fuera así, desde la música, los trajes, las pinturas y la casa donde vive el protagonista.
So in the movie, not only the character, but all of the other elements like the music, the house, the furniture, the artwork are very familiar.
Y cuando digo que hablo de mí y de lo que me es familiar, no quiere decir que yo haya experimentado todo lo que le ocurre al personaje. Yo me he apropiado de recuerdos de mi hermano, partes le pertenecen a él, o de mis hermanas, o de mis amigos durante la época de los 80. Todo eso lo he hecho mío porque lo he vivido y forma parte de la película.
When I say I talk about things that are familiar to me, it doesn't mean I've experienced everything that you see in the movie. I've appropriated a lot of memories from my brother, my sisters, my friends, that reflect a lot of the experiences from the 80s.
Y incluso la música, por ejemplo, las canciones que aparecen también tienen una relación directa conmigo mismo. Durante el coloquio, que no ocurre o ocurre a través del teléfono, del móvil en la película, suena una canción en la película que están viendo, una canción de un grupo muy amigo mío y que representa para mí los años 80, que se llama ¿Cómo pudiste hacerme esto a mí?, de Alaska y Dinarama, que por un lado data la película que están viendo como del 85, pero también es un grupo amigo y una canción que a mí me gusta especialmente. También, hablando de la música, talking about music, sorry Ana. So also the use, también usar a Chabela Vargas, que fue una grandísima amiga mía, inspiradora también en todos los sentidos, y a Mina, la cantante italiana, forma parte también de mi familia emocional. Es decir, Mina no es la primera vez que aparece en mis películas, y Chabela, además de ser una mujer importantísima en mi vida, también como cantante me parecía, no sé, quiero decir, yo a nadie he oído hablar sobre el abandono iba a decir el poderío, con el enorme poder con que lo transmitía ella. Excuse me.
Give me a minute.
I'm
and
so
even the
fast.
music and the songs I've got a relationship with. During the Q&A scene, the Q&A that doesn't physically happen, there's a song ¿Cómo pudiste?
Hacerme esto a mí.
How could you do this to me?
Yeah.
By a band that very much dates the film that you're seeing, and we're very dear friends of mine, Alaska y Dinarama. And it very much dates the film from 1985. And they were also my friends. And even the use of the songs of Chavela Vargas, who was a great friend and a constant inspiration for me. And as well, Mina, the use of the Italian singer Mina's songs. Both Mina and Chavela form an emotional family for me as well, and I haven't heard anyone sing about abandonment with such power as Mina.
No, as
Chavela.
Sorry, it's Chavela.
Well, that's about music and the script.
I think you've covered about 10 answers in that question. Tell me a little bit about working with Antonio, because one of the things that I think is so exquisite about the film is his performance.
Yeah.
He's extraordinary in it. It feels like a very different Antonio Banderas to anything I've ever seen on screen. And I think it's really interesting. He was talking at Cannes of having made 113 films, and this is the happiest he's ever been as an actor.
Yo creo que realmente Antonio se ha renovado como actor en esta película.
I think Antonio has renewed himself as an actor in this film.
Reconozco que cuando terminé el guión lo tenía en mente, pero también había puesto algunos nombres más, porque era consciente de que lo que le iba a pedir a Antonio es justamente lo que él nunca había hecho en frente de una cámara, y por lo cual él no se caracterizaba.
I recognized that when I finished the script, I had Antonio in mind, I had him in mind, but I also put some other names on the table because I realized that what I was going to be asking of Antonio was something he hadn't done before. It was a register that I hadn't seen him do before.
Pero, y no hablo de Hollywood, sino incluso conmigo mismo, quiero decir, esa intensidad de Antonio, la bravura que le caracteriza, eran justo elementos que yo no quería utilizar, y quería que él interpretara por las características del papel.
And not only in terms of his Hollywood roles, but also with the work that he's done with me, that intensity and that bravery that he shows in his performances are elements that I didn't want to use for this character.
Y era difícil llamar a Antonio Banderas para decirle, lo último que quiero que seas es Antonio Banderas.
It was very difficult to call up Antonio Banderas and tell him, the last thing I want you to be is Antonio Banderas.
Le mandé el guión, afortunadamente le gustó muchísimo y lo entendió muy bien. Entonces pensaba que necesitaba una conversación para establecer que en el amplio rango que tiene como actor íbamos a desarrollar unos tonos distintos que él no había utilizado antes.
I sent him the script, which fortunately he really liked, and I thought we needed to have this conversation of using, amongst the wide range of his capabilities as an actor, this particular tone that this role required.
Y afortunadamente, quiero decir, casi no fue necesaria esta conversación porque él entendió desde el principio que la película demandaba un estilo interpretativo y unos tonos muy distintos en los que él se había especializado. Entonces, para mi sorpresa, pues yo pensé que iba a ser un trabajo mucho más duro para los dos, pero yo creo que, yo estoy de acuerdo que es su interpretación más brillante y más imprevisible e inesperada, pero fue la que hemos conseguido entre los dos con mayor facilidad. Yo creo que por su inteligencia, el modo en que entendió el guión y también su generosidad para ponerse como alguien que está empezando a actuar.
Fortunately, that wasn't that necessary a conversation because Antonio knew that the film demanded an acting style and tonalities that were different from what he had been specialized in up until that point. I thought it was going to be harder for both of us, but I agree with what Maria just said, that it's one of his most beautiful performances, and the generosity and his intensity as an actor comes through.
And so with Antonio always is someone very physical, but anyway, his physicality here was, it was present because he suffered from some pain. But Antonio is not an actor that I used to work to rehearse a lot with him, always. Since the beginning, since the 80s. He has an incredible intuition and an incredible instinct. And he never imitated me in the movie, but he has had capacity of being impregnated by myself. So we didn't rehearse before, during the pre-production, which is exactly the opposite that I used to do with Penelope. I direct every actor in a different way, depending on the type of person and the type of actor they are. And usually they are not the same. For example, Penelope needs a long time of making rehearsals. There is one moment, and that happens like 1 month later, when she's in contact with the character, and then, she dominates completely the character, and then you can ask her anything you want, and she's always perfect. But she needs a period of being conscious of what is about every aspect of the character. So in the 6 movies that I made with her, we always did it in that way. During the process of pre-production, I used to rehearse with her, and in general with the rest of the actors. Because also, the rehearsals for me in the pre-production, they are not thinking about their works. Also helped me a lot to find the appropriate lines of the script, and I adapt. There is one of the last writing of the script is when I am rehearsing with the actors. Then I discover, because usually when you write, you don't write in the same way that we talk. And also it is necessary to make that adaptation to be very colloquial. So I also use, and that helps me a lot, to rehearse with them, to adapt at the last minute, in these 2 months of pre-production, the character and the lines to the real actors that they are going to do it. Because also depending on the actor, I also adapt the character like a tailor making a suit for them.
Tell me about one of my favorite scenes in the film is the scene, well, a number of them, between Julieta Serrano and Antonio Banderas, the older mother. And they're talking about the past. And it's the 3rd time Julieta's played Antonio's mother in a film.
Yes.
But that reflects in many ways your own process, because a number of those scenes you wrote while making the film. They weren't in the draft of the screenplay you began filming with.
No, it's true that I write many times the script. This is, once that I have the first draft, it means, and when the script is finished, then there is the moment really to write, because you know everything about the story and everything about the characters and the decoration and all that. But for me, todos los procesos que incluyen la preparación y el rodaje son procesos que están vivos.
Every single part of the process that include the pre-production and the actual shooting of the film are very live processes for me.
Entonces, no importa cuántas veces haya escrito y reescrito, porque escribir es básicamente reescribir y corregir de nuevo.
Doesn't matter how many times I've written or rewritten something, because the writing process for me is always alive and it's always correcting itself.
Bueno, no importa las veces que lo haya hecho, a veces durante el rodaje descubro nuevos aspectos y yo mismo improviso nuevas secuencias que no estaban incluidas en el guión y que se convierten en parte muy importante de la película.
Doesn't matter how many times I've rewritten a script, because during the shoot, myself, I can find new elements that become really important parts of the story and I can incorporate them into the film.
Y eso me lo da el propio rodaje. O sea, es imposible pensar en esas secuencias antes. O sea, son producto de la interacción entre el actor y el personaje, que me inspira nuevas secuencias.
And that's given to me by the actual shoot. It's absolutely impossible to think about them beforehand because they're a product of the relationship of the actor with the set and with the script.
Y cuando empecé a trabajar con Julieta Serrano, la actriz que hace la madre mayor y enferma, tenía muy pocas secuencias, pero porque para mí el significado de la madre mayor era que necesitaba que entrara de algún modo la idea de la muerte en la película.
Because when I started working with Julieta Serrano, who's the actress who plays the older version of the protagonist's mother, she had very few scenes, and the significance of this character is the entrance of death into the story.
No solo la muerte, la idea de la muerte de la madre, pero incluso también, de un modo sutil, la idea de la muerte en sí misma, porque el personaje de Antonio está jugando un juego peligroso con la heroína.
Not only the idea of the death of the mother, but the idea of death itself, because Antonia's character is playing a very dangerous game with heroin.
Esa era la razón de la presencia de la madre, pero una vez empezado el rodaje con Julieta, que es una actriz soberbia, como se puede ver, en casa, la noche antes de rodar la secuencia donde ella va por el pasillo y de cuando están también en la terraza, de pronto improvisé dos secuencias que yo creo que son esenciales, que son las secuencias en que la madre le reprocha que no ha sido un buen hijo.
That was the reason for her presence in the movie, but once the shoot started, at home one night before shooting the corridor scene, I improvised two scenes that I think are now absolutely pivotal to that character and to the film, which are the ones where she speaks with her son about his failings as a son.
Y eso muestra que entre los dos ha habido grandes épocas de silencios, cosas de las que no se han hablado.
It shows that there was great moments of silence between the two of them and a lot of things that were remaining unspoken.
Incluso alguna cuenta pendiente por parte de la madre.
Even some unfinished business on the side of the mother.
Y la secuencia me sirve especialmente para que Antonio le diga que siente mucho no haber sido nunca, porque él lo sabe. Sabe que nunca fue el hijo en el que ella soñó.
And it serves me that Antonio's character has this opportunity to tell her, because he knows this himself, that he was never the son that she really wanted.
Y que cuando decía a quién habrá salido este niño, o sea, la extrañeza que ella demostraba al decir eso, no lo decía con orgullo precisamente.
Because when in earlier scenes when she was saying, who did this boy come out like, it wasn't the strangeness that she saw in him, it wasn't coming from a place of pride.
Y era muy importante para el personaje que, como habéis visto en la película, le diga a la madre que el problema es simplemente que él era como es y que lo sentía muchísimo.
And it was very important for the character to say that the problem was that he was simply the way he was and that he was very sorry about that.
Y en cualquier caso, esta secuencia no está inspirada en mi propia vida. O sea, yo no viví esa secuencia con mi propia madre.
The scene is not at all inspired by my own life. I never lived through this particular moment with my own mother.
Pero, sin embargo, creo que adquiere una enorme importancia en la película. Hablar de la extrañeza que yo sentía a mi alrededor cuando era niño.
But it has a great importance in the film, and it also speaks a lot about the otherness that I felt as a child.
La extrañeza en los ojos de los demás, en los ojos de la gente del pueblo, porque te veían como un niño diferente, y a veces la crueldad incluso de los compañeros de colegio, también por encontrarte como un compañero diferente. Yo hablaba de esa extrañeza.
The otherness and the strangeness in the eyes of other people in the village, and sometimes even the cruelty of other children in my school, which I could see in their eyes, which made me feel different.
Y a veces necesitas estar rodando y ya llevar muy avanzado el rodaje para descubrir que necesitas escribir e incluir esa secuencia.
And sometimes you need to be deep into a shoot already to discover that you really need to write and include those scenes.
Well, I'm very glad.
You don't mind if I use the glasses because the seminal lights just kill me.
Let me open
It is
things
good.
out to the audience.
Bueno, primeramente te pido perdón porque los pongo en una situación relacionada con las drogas y Madrid es una ciudad multirracial en la que las personas de color tienen otros trabajos también. Yo digamos que he utilizado un cliché, lo siento.
First of all, I have to apologize because I show black characters in this film in a scene as drug dealers. So I apologize about that. I have to say that Madrid is a deeply multicultural city, and obviously people of color have other jobs that are not dealing drugs.
Pero de todas maneras la pregunta que me decía era...
Que si tienes planes,
para hacer una historia
para caracteres afro-caribbeños.
para personajes de color.
Me gustaría hacer una película porno con actores negros.
I sensed some cinema. I thought I'd say, I would like to shoot a porn movie with black characters.
A kind of porno version of Shaft. I was watching on TV just before coming to this place. I was watching Shaft, the original movie.
A porn version of Shaft.
Yo pienso en mi infancia cuando empecé a ver películas y recuerdo con mucha nostalgia el Technicolor, o sea, los colores muy vibrantes, muy explosivos y muy exagerados.
I think about my childhood and about starting to watch films and discovering cinema, and I think about it in Technicolor, about these very vibrant, very dynamic colors.
Y yo creo que cuando me hice director de cine, de un modo consciente he estado buscando la coloración del Technicolor, que por cuestiones químicas no se puede hacer ya en los laboratorios.
I think when I became a film director, I very consciously was always looking for the particular color tones of Technicolor, recreating that, which obviously for technical and chemical reasons can no longer be done.
Cuando empecé a hacer cine también tenía claro, de las pocas cosas que tenía claras, que no iba a hacer tampoco un cine naturalista, sino un cine donde abrazaría el artificio como parte del lenguaje.
When I started making cinema, one of the things I had very clear, one of the very few things I had clear, was that I wasn't going to be making a naturalistic type of cinema. I wanted to embrace artifice in my films.
Entonces yo actúo como un pintor que utiliza objetos de 3 dimensiones, pero verdaderamente el modo de actuar cuando decoro las películas es igual que un pintor combinando cosas de colores.
So I act like a painter that uses 3D objects, and my process when it comes to decor is very much like painting, where I'm playing around with different colors and combinations.
Entonces lo primero establezco la base, o sea, dónde los personajes van a estar, el suelo, porque los suelos son importantísimos. Los suelos son las superficies que más se ven en una película, el suelo y la pared.
I establish first the base, the floors, which are incredibly important because they're the parts that we see the most. They're the parts that the characters are walking on. So it's the floors and the walls that are the most important start.
Una vez que tienes el wall, la pared, entonces soy una pesadilla para el director de ese departamento de decoración porque no le pido solo un sofá, le pido varios sofás de varios tipos y de varios colores y ensayo con ellos frente a la pared. Sobre ese sofá, sobre esos varios sofás que voy haciéndole fotos o vídeo, voy depositando después a los actores con diferentes trajes de diferentes colores para componer la última imagen de todo ello. I know that it was too long. I'm very technical.
So when I have the wall, become a nightmare for the art director on that shoot because I ask not for one sofa, but for various sofas in different colors. And I rehearse with the actors on them against the wall. And I take pictures of this process as well. And I play around by placing the actors with their different colored costumes against the different colored sofas against the wall.
And with the furniture all together.
With the furniture.
And yo creo que mi afición por el color, por los colores vibrantes y vivos, viene también porque he nacido en una región muy monócroma y muy austera, que es La Mancha.
I think that my love for vibrant colors also comes from the fact that I was born and raised in a very austere and very monochromatic area of Spain called La Mancha.
Y es una reacción en contra al lugar donde nací.
It's a reaction against the place where I was born.
En una película donde haya un director en crisis, siempre recordará la gran obra que se ha hecho sobre esa situación, que es 8,5, que es una especie de monumento fílmico.
A film where there is a film director in crisis will always be reminiscent of 8.5, which is a monument of a film on that
Lo
subject.
único, espero que no me compares ni con 8,5 ni con Fellini, porque entonces tengo solo las de perder.
I hope you don't compare me to 8.5 or to Fellini, because I'm only going to lose in that situation.
No, traté de hacer una película distinta, consciente de que las comparaciones serían siempre negativas.
I tried to do a very different type of movie, very conscious of the fact that any comparison would always be negative.
En las dos, además de un personaje que es director de cine, hay, de un modo muy especial, la presencia de la madre. Yo diría que el único momento en que me recordé a mí mismo 8,5 y Fellini fue cuando llegan los personajes a Paterna y hay una verdadera orgía de sábanas movidas por el viento. Recordaba las sábanas de la madre del personaje de 8,5.
In both, aside from the fact that they both feature the same type of character, film director, the presence of the mother is also very special in both films. But the only moment that truly reminded me of 8.5 was the moment where they arrive to Paterna, and there's this true orgy of bed sheets kind of dwindling and moving around in the wind.
Pero bueno, Fellini es uno de mis directores favoritos. No pensé nunca durante el rodaje. La verdad es que no he tenido como referencia ningún otro director concreto durante el rodaje.
Fellini's one of my absolute favorite filmmakers, so though I didn't think of him during the shoot, and to be honest, I didn't have any other film director in mind while I was shooting.
Cuando estaba montando con mi montadora y llegaron las escenas nuevas de la madre con Antonio, cuando le reprochaba que no había sido un buen hijo, ella me decía, pero bueno, te has convertido de pronto, esto es como Bergman. Y a mí me encantaba la idea de que pudiera verse en una película mía la influencia de Bergman, que es un autor que a mí me apasiona y que sí que lo tengo muy presente en mi cine, aunque no lo parezca a primera vista.
When I was studying, though, when the dailies from the new scenes between Antonio and his mother arrived, my editor told me that this reminded her a lot of Bergman's cinema, and I love that because I love the idea of people being able to see the influence of Bergman's cinema in my cinema, although at first glance they have very little to do with each other.
Okay.
Before we finish, wonderfully translated, we have All About My Mother, talking of mothers, playing here at 9 o'clock. Please do stay, those of you who are fans of Pedro's cinema. Pedro, tell people to stay and watch All About My Mother.
Oh, yes, please,
what would you say about All About My Mother to get people to stay?
To
get people to stay to watch All About My Mother.
Well, fortunately, the movie is very different from this. There is a lot of humor. Sometimes it looks like a comedy. And well, I don't know, I received so many prizes around the world that for me, the bigger prize of all of them will be if you stay here tonight.
Pedro Almodóvar, thank you so much. Anna, thank you for translating, and thank you to all of you for staying.